Caroline, I think you can fall into the camp of people who's been like, hey, I've known this for a while. I've known that TPUs are so efficient. Does it really make a difference that you have Meta now buying into this? What does it mean to have a market awaken to the possibilities of what Google has developed?
I think what's different here is before Alphabet had been selling it as part of the cloud winning formula. Come to us, you can use our cloud and you use our TPUs, which are on their 7th generation now. They've been developing these for 10 years. They've been offering them to other clients since 2018. We haven't seen them really sell them specifically to others to use within their data centers, not just Meta, but maybe banks who need to trade at high frequency. That's a clear area of edge for them. So they're starting to get this inbound. In fact, a lot of analysts, Stacey Raxton over there, we've heard also from Bernstein, you've also heard from Gil Luria saying this is kind of an obvious dimension of the business model. The question, though, is what will Nvidia do about it? Now, we've heard before reports from The Information that OpenAI was getting very close to potentially taking TPUs from Google, Alphabet, maybe using their cloud more ever since that relationship when Microsoft got disrupted a bit. And then Nvidia went and put $100 billion into OpenAI and said, oh, please do use our GPUs if you wouldn't like to. What is Meta going to suddenly get offered from Jensen Huang? That's my key question, because you've seen big deals with Anthropic, but Anthropic suddenly has got some more investment from Nvidia as well. There's going to be a tussle at the top here, but be sure, Jensen Huang's been eyeing TPUs for a while, and Alphabet, this has been a winning formula. That's why Gemini 3 has been so efficient, and efficiency's everything. It's all about energy and what more they can do with it, because that's going to be the bottleneck.
Yeah, we have actually updated our circularity chart, which continues to grow and boggles the mind no matter which form you look at it in. Michael Ball, is this a problem for the whole market? I mean, so much is built on Nvidia reigning supreme. Here's the new version, right? And you can see all of the deals that they do with other big players like AMD, like Oracle, like Microsoft, like Intel, and that those players do with them. So if Nvidia is brought down, is it a problem for everybody?
I don't think so. And this has been the question that the market's trying to figure out, because capital so far is staying in the market. So although we've had Nvidia now break below that 180 level, which was a key battleground and had a lot of sort of positive, negative connotations if it was below or above, the fact that Google has taken on $1 trillion and that the market is just finding a more efficient answer to the AI CapEx question. And that's what we want to see. We want to see competition. We want to see these guys have choices. We don't want the hyperscalers all bottlenecked into one choice that has backlogs growing and energy efficiency questions. We want optionality. We want capitalism to work. And that's sort of what we're seeing. And although it's violent in some ways, given the price action of the winners and losers, it is a positive development in the long run.
Okay, so if we do get, and we have, something more efficient, something more energy efficient, Caroline, is that enough? Or is this an ecosystem that's incredibly sticky? So even if there are hyperscalers and others who want to use Alphabet's chips, if they're already with Nvidia, can they just so easily change over?
What's going to be interesting is how the development of the software works out here, because we understand that Alphabet is doing a lot to show the prowess not only of the TPU, but also the software that goes with it, and some of the ability to use software that's adjacent, not just their JAX, which is their own programming language that they've developed to go alongside TPUs, but you can use others that use different ecosystems. Look, the thing with NVIDIA is that they have CUDA, and everyone is locked in not only to the hardware that NVIDIA offers, but the entire ecosystem that NVIDIA offers. If Alphabet can start to chip away at that and show, look, with us you can have prowess the entire way through, I think there is going to be a real recognition that this is a clear alternative. But remember, the whole vertical integration story, what Google has shown so well is that it can develop incredible models because it's using its own tech stack, and then it's putting it out into the ecosystem. We're all using it. Look what Alibaba is just announcing. They too want to be a full vertically integrated company that makes their own chips, that develops the models, that offers it out on their cloud, and then offers the models as well. But also remember, this is what Amazon does. Yes, we're talking about TPUs, but Trainium is on their 3rd iteration. We understand that many people are using not only for training, but are we going to use it not just for inference, but the training of models as well? How much can Amazon start to show its competitive edge as well with its chips, not just its AWS offering?
By the way, maybe you can clear something up. I don't really understand Jensen Huang's argument that the GPUs they sell, what are we in now, Blackwell or Hopper?
Vera Rubin for the next one.
Right, so those are capable of many different things, right? The graphics processing units are flexible, as you may have read last night, whereas the tensor processing units are supposed to be ASICs, so they're application specific. However, if that application is AI,
machine learning,
I don't care if GPUs can show me good graphics. I want AI, right? From these
and I
chips.
think this is where the battleground's going to be. How much efficiency can you wring out from this hardware with the software within it? And if Jensen Huang can say, look, my GPUs have been able to accelerate your AI models, your machine learning that much faster. And by the way, I've got a chunk of change that I can continue to invest in you as a company and continue to invest in your entire ecosystem. Maybe there's the winning formula. But this is why Google has made everyone sit up straight and why analysts have become noisier and noisier as to how much this has been a winning formula for them, is that the DeepMind were able to go directly to their semiconductor team and say, look, with this, we're learning this, let's work in it together, let's understand where the efficiencies can be brought. And I really do think that the infrastructure issue is not going to be whether you eventually can lay your hands on the hardware, it's going to be whether you can do more with the grid, with the electricity. And if they can show energy efficiency at this point, that's going to be what's music to the government's ears and therefore to users' ears. But I just think this turf war is just starting. We're all going to start talking about Inferentia and Trainium and what Amazon's doing and what everyone else is doing in ASICs. Because remember, that's what Broadcom's been doing so well on. All these companies, Meta's designing its own chips.
Broadcom was up 12% yesterday.
OpenAI is developing its own chips. Eventually, maybe that's going to become commoditized, not just large language models.
So it's a world where there are different changes, Michael. I mean, it's no longer sort of like the tide is lifting all boats. You have to be more discerning with what these companies are doing.
Right, and I would add that the depreciation question now is even more forefront, right? Because we don't know, to everything you just said. I do this, I watch this, and my head is blowing. Like, it's just so much to keep track of. And as an investor, if someone who's trying to look at a balance sheet, whether it's a hyperscaler or whether it's the provider of these chips, looking at the backlogs, looking at the inventory builds, how much is this all going to be worth? If there's all these new options of energy efficiency versus training, inference kind of duration, how long something stays practical and efficient.
Well, this is why Zuck is supposedly thinking about renting them, right? When I look at a new EV out there in the car world, that's where my mind goes. I think, why don't I lease it instead of buy it? Because there's going to be something better in 2 years anyway, and who knows about the battery. I want to ask, though, more about Danny's question, which is that you have less sector correlation if two people in the same sector are at odds, right? So.
Well, funny enough, tech's still been under pressure. So looking at what I like to look at the option markets and seeing where sort of bullish skew / bearish skew is, people are still very negative on tech. People have obviously rotated into more value-focused sectors like healthcare, like defensives. And that makes sense in a lot of ways because the valuation thing over the last 3 weeks has been what spurred this. But to your point, that like internal battle of is this good for the overall AI CapEx story is still being fought out. And we're not seeing it with people trying to regain exposure to it. Google calls are expensive. The ball's a little bit high, but it's not necessarily being reached for like we've seen in Nvidia in the past.
And can I ask whether this whole short OpenAI suppliers, long Alphabet suppliers is still working? Because yesterday Oracle pushed higher, but today Oracle's back trading in negative territory before the market opens. Is that long in the tooth, or are we still thinking about that trade?
You know, that's a great question. And I don't understand, quite frankly, if everyone's sort of in this together in a lot of ways, why there's been such differentiate to this scale. Now, I get the weaker links were being picked off, but we're looking at CoreWeave and Oracle's down almost 40% in their equities, and then obviously we know what's going on with their CDSs. So it looks like we've had that emotional pulse come through the markets, as we often do, and now valuations are sort of reset in a lot of ways, and it's suddenly like going to be a point where people might try to pick bottoms. Now, I'm not calling for that, but I guess to your point, it can't all just go back into Google now. Like, it's got to have this ecosystem of going on.
Apple's next, like, is that the...
Yes.
So at the moment, it's
yes.
Nvidia, Apple's at what, 4.2 trillion, there or thereabouts?
I think the Apple questions are incredibly fascinating.